them food or shelter when they didn't have it. Not saying they couldn't get it, but they know the situations that they were in. You know what I mean? As school kids, and
they were in school. They got kicked out. You said
both of them got kicked.
Both of them got kicked out, and you gave them food and shelter. How did you have money for food and shelter?
I learned how to do it.
What you talking about, man?
What's the chances of you, Cam, and Mase getting back?
I don't think it's really gonna happen. We two different type of people. Always have competitive nature. Always been first before friendship. Remember, Cam, my man. It's not.
So it's not you.
I took the position of my position.
You were fanned out and you begged me to come to your house after you heard all these mixtapes. That's how you got in. You was so cool. And we was like, yo, Jomo's a nice guy. Mace like, yo, I think I'll teach him how to rap. Mace actually taught you how to rap. Literally. He taught you how to rap.
Definition, Jimmy, because when you think, if I ask anybody on the streets of New York, like, give me some adjective or definition of Jim Jones, what do you think one of the words would be?
I would hope a survivor, a visionary, a philanthropist, a person with a big heart, a person that stands on 10 toes. Not perfect. He's a perfect example of what could happen for you in life if you believe in yourself.
This is uncharted territory. These are conversations we never had in hip-hop.
When Mase and Cam'ron finally stopped holding back and exposed Jim Jones for distorting the truth, Harlem simply shook. These years, the narratives he has been recounting are not consistent with actual history. And now, we're dissecting how Mase and Cam made fun of him in front of the entire society.
Mase and all that going on yet, or are they still coming up?
I'm not gonna sit here and do a discography, my brother. It's a little bit too much for me. And you ain't pay enough for that. So if you got some other questions you wanna ask, or you could erase all this, send you your money back. I understand what's going on and the plight of everything that's going on, and people wanna know the history, but this ain't the way that you're not gonna be able to get the whole Jim Jones or Jomo story for that, what you did. I thought this was some regular questions. Seemed like you trying to get everything up to every point, and that's not gonna happen right now. So if you wanna ask some questions, I'm cool with that, but you definitely can't ask me all these questions you're asking, my brother. So if you got some...
Yeah. Matter of fact, bring up the clip.
Yeah, Mase helped me learn how to rap. Mase taught me how to rap. Mase actually showed me, he was the first person to show me how to rap. Mase actually sat me down and showed me the magic to rap.
We taught you how to rap, how you ran the whole organization, how you made Diplomat. We ain't make none of this up. You was a fan. I put you down because you had a free crib and you was a nice guy. That's how you got down.
The entire internet knew that Harlem was going to tremble the moment Mase and Cam'ron chose to attack Jim Jones, because it indicates that they are finished maintaining harmony when those two publicly discuss something, particularly regarding someone they grew up with. Jim Jones has been traveling from interview to interview for years, sharing tales that consistently place him at the forefront of Harlem history. Tales in which he says he started movements, made waves, or performed parts that Mase and Cam insist he never did. Jim would speak as though the entire Harlem rap scene revolved around him. He carried an entire era on his own, as if Dipset wouldn't exist without him. People from Harlem usually raised an eyebrow, asking why the stories kept shifting. But fans outside of New York devoured it. At last, Mase and Cam had had enough. They took a seat on their program and made the decision to permanently fix the record. The entire culture was watching them at all times because of the way they carried it out.
Credit you being successful to Cam.
I credit a lot to Cam, but I also credit a lot to us, because behind closed doors, it was us that put him in that position.
You was a fan. You begged us. You were a fan, nigga. A fan.
They came live with me in the projects in my grandmother's house.
In your grandmother's house?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but she was gone.
Passed away.
So you got the apartment to yourself. Mm-hmm. They come, but you still got to pay the rent.
Yeah, I paid the rent. I paid Kuda Love rent. That was Mase manager. I was a hustler. I always been a hustler.
You were in the streets.
I know how to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we going to Jomo's house? I heard the new shit you did. Yo, you want to come through? Come through. So yeah, I would bring some business over there sometime. Look, Maybe.
There wasn't times where Cam had to do what he had to do to make $1 and things like that. But from the beginning, I always had to make $1 because I always been on my own.
Yeah.
I raised my whole family since I was a teenager. I used to hustle and get my mom's money. You heard it. My first job in this thing was a hype man for Cam. You know what I mean? But I started as Cam partner, became in this mission wholeheartedly. I knew what my job was. He knew what his job was.
What was your job?
My job was to make sure nothing happened to that man while he was trying to be successful, because I knew that if he be successful, then he gonna turn around and make him successful. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, he was doing music a long time and things like that, but it was a pivotal moment where before he got signed, them 2 years was very crucial to everything that we did together in his journey of becoming who Cam is.
Do you remember how we met? Pause. So not met, how you got cool with us? Basically, you heard our freestyles. Yo, man, I heard the freestyles.
It wasn't simply what they said that made their shout out so strong. It was the ease with which they expressed it. They didn't yell. They refrained from cursing. They didn't attempt to use cheap punches to humiliate Jim. They simply strolled through the chronology of Harlem history, highlighting specific instances in which Jim embellished, misrepresented facts, or put himself in circumstances he wasn't even involved in. Mase clarified that several of the moves Jim boasts about weren't actually his. They were either Mase's foundation, Cam's ideas, or set plays that Jim later attempted to claim as his own. Cam also chimed in, revealing how Jim pretended to have found particular artists, cultivated particular connections, or promoted particular trends when in fact he was merely riding the wave rather than driving it. Additionally, Mase and Cam's version of events held more weight than Jim's because they were working outside in the 1990s and early 2000s.
I'm extremely happy of what I've accomplished, who I've become, what I've overcame, what I have the ability to do.
You was not there, man. You wasn't there. You were fanned out and you begged to come to your house after you heard all these mixtapes. That's how you got in.
Whenever I do my interviews, I'm very real with myself. You know what I mean? Like, I know the whole playing field.
We taught you how to rap, how you ran the whole organization.
People get this picture painted like I'm from the real bottom with nothing. I've been traveling on the train since I've been 8 and 9. I've been telling people this for years. Like, I'm a real anomaly. Like, I'm different in New York City. I was a man long before I was supposed to be a man.
Get out of here.
How you made Diplomat? Yeah, you ain't make none of this stuff. You was a fan. So you gonna sit around and act like you been around all this Harlem and everything. You ever see somebody from Harlem try to act like they from Harlem so bad that you gotta keep saying?
The most outrageous aspect is how effortlessly they said the truth. Cam and Mase didn't have to ask for more information. Because they experienced things firsthand, the recollections were vivid. They discussed street corners, crew politics, label meetings, mixtape periods, and personal dynamics, all of which Jim has been recounting from an entirely different perspective. They even talked about how Jim continued to subtly disparage Mase over the years, in an effort to portray him as untrustworthy or disconnected from the streets. Despite this, Mase was the one who initially contributed to the creation of the Harlem Spark, which in turn sparked Dipset's movement. Fans discovered Jim had been twisting the story for so long that some people had genuinely believed him up until Cam supported that, with receipts from their early days. Mase even stated it clearly. For years, we didn't care that he was lying. He's saying too much now, though. That alone demonstrated the change. Cam and Mase never want conflict. They never intended to destroy Jim. However, they intervened and put an end to Jim's lies as they began to damage their legacy rather than just enhance his. And that was evident from the manner they revealed everything. Harlem was constantly aware of the reality, and now the entire world does.
Cam gonna do? You think he just gonna sit there and you think he gonna and Jim basically Jim rhymed first? You know what I mean? Well, actually, Cam and 50 said what they were talking about what they said. Jim heard that. He came back and said that. Now, motherfucking Cam, what you think Cam gonna do? Cam is a lyricist. He's gonna make you feel any type of stupid city way that's possible. Basically, he's gonna say basically kick you in your nuts. You know what I mean? He's gonna rip your heart out. Remember the old school when they was doing electric boogie and grabbed the heart, pulled the heart, they just had in their head. Bit the through it, stomped on it. That's what you're gonna hear. It's basically they was going back and forth. After that, like I said, it went to the money. That's the whole point of the situation. Yeah, you're gonna say Jim is from the Bronx. Everybody else on the side, your group of niggas, be like, yeah, man, you know, these peanut gallery, they gonna make up all this shit to make sure to turn the peanuts into peanut butter and whip it into something else to make it all a whole bunch of different shit. Then my niggas is gonna talk about your feet and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
Mase and Cam began dissecting the situation. The entire mythos around Jim Jones started to fall apart in real time. They withdrew layers of narratives. For years, Jim had been saying the same thing. Stories that, in their opinion, were little more than shrewd exaggerations dressed in Harlem flair. Jim pretending to be the driving force behind Dipset's success was one of the biggest lies they exposed. Mase noted that Cam was already generating a lot of buzz, receiving label interest, and establishing the foundation for Dipset's identity long before Jim ever picked up a microphone. Mase went so far as to remind everyone how he put Cam on, how he helped establish him in the business, and how Jim didn't start taking rap seriously until much later. However, you would think Jim was planning everything from the beginning if you listened to his interviews. Mase and Cam finally spoke up because of this. They were not going to allow Jim to continue rewriting the basis they had constructed themselves. By explaining how Jim would arrive at meetings, projects, or street demonstrations much later and then recount the events as if he had been there from the beginning, Cam poured fuel to the fire. According to Cam, Jim had a tendency to interject himself into events that he wasn't involved in, didn't contribute to, or didn't comprehend, but then recounted as though he was a crucial participant. Fans began to remark that Jim rewrites Harlem history more than Hollywood directors do. Additionally, Mase responded with instances that were too detailed to refute. He discussed Jim's early concerns, his lack of confidence as an artist, how he was more of a behind-the-scenes figure, and how the streets remember those days very differently than Jim does now.
Thing about it is, you gotta understand the war. Like, Jim it's like battling. It's like rap. Like motherfucking rap. Jim, whatever, but they wasn't. They was on platforms. Jim said what he said. Jim, I think what he said, something about inviting him to his so he said, he said, they on my dick, right? That's something that's serious. Like, you hear that, you like, ooh, it's like Jim caught a ball. Oh!
Do you consider Jim a Harlem guy or no?
Jim basically was with Killer for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Cam already, you gotta understand, Jim had family in 1199 and Cam had family in 1199 and they both had family members over there. So that's how that connection went on as far as, cause Bloodshed and everybody was over there. So that was the connection with that as far as being First Avenue. First Avenue, they built up these condos called 1199 and Cam had family over there and Jim had family over there. So when Cam and Digger and Bloodshed was rocking, that was how Jim was able to make that connection because Cam was going to First Ave and Jim had family on First Ave. You know what I'm saying? At a real young age. We was teenagers though.
But when Mase started talking about how Jim always tries to portray him as someone who left Harlem or was never outside, while in fact Mase's influence in Harlem predates all of them, that's when the debate truly took a turn for the worse. He reminded everyone that Mase was already platinum on the radio and established Harlem as a major force in mainstream rap long before Dipset had matching costumes or songs. Cam supported this by stating, Jim tends to downplay Mase's legacy because admitting the truth forces Jim to acknowledge his own position, that he wasn't the original leader, he wasn't the innovator, and he wasn't the one setting the pace. The supporters sensed that as well. The comments went crazy. People began to claim that Jim's whole self-confidence was based on fiction he created over time rather than actual experiences. Jim even spoke like a tour guide who wasn't on the excursion. According to Mase, the internet was in tears over one statement alone since it perfectly summed up Jim's interviews. Loud, lively, self-assured, yet not quite grounded in reality. Cam reiterated that while they don't mind Jim recounting stories, it bothers them when those tales distort the reality of what they truly accomplished for Harlem. It was more than just a call-out. This was an adjustment. Mase and Cam also ensured that the correction was audible to everyone in the culture. By the time Mase and Cam reached their third wave of exposing Jim, they had moved past the minor contradictions and directly addressed Jim's ego, which was the root of the issue. They clarified that even though Jim entered the rap scene far later than the others he criticizes, he has spent years attempting to establish himself as the voice, face, and even history of Harlem. Mase mentioned how Jim frequently acts as though he is in every room, studio session, and street meeting, even though everyone knows he isn't. Jim's main problem, according to Cam, is that he never learned how to offer credit without attempting to fit himself into the narrative. Jim would always say things like, "We did this," or "I was part of that," even when he wasn't, rather than "Cam and Mase did this," or "Harlem was moving like that." According to Mase, one of the most depressing aspects of Jim's tale is how pointless the lies are. Jim had his own achievements. All of that, from reality TV to the Balone era to creating his own brand, is insufficient for him. He also wants to know the origin narrative. He desires the accolades from years he was not involved in. He wants to take credit for the moments he observed from the sidelines. And he was no longer able to steal that brightness, thanks to Mase and Cam. They clarified that Jim doesn't appear weak when he tells the truth. The falsehoods do. Fans began pointing out that Jim consistently minimizes the contributions of some artists unless they are directly beneficial to him. Mase described how Jim pretended to be the crew leader and organizer in an attempt to change the early Dipset atmosphere. Cam chuckled at that, demonstrating that Dipset wouldn't be possible without the foundation and connection he and Mase established. Jim wasn't the architect, although he was involved. He was not the one who invented the character. Rather, he was a late addition who developed into it. Jim never liked to acknowledge the fact. The portion that truly rocked the internet came next. Mase explains how Harlem has suffered more than benefited from Jim's lies. When someone from Harlem exaggerates their role, it confuses the culture, he stated. Worst of all, it denigrates those who truly put in the effort and fabricates stories that are repeated for years. Authenticity, style, swagger, storytelling, and truth have always been the cornerstones of Harlem, Cam said. However,